for the school year. So did anyone take their praxis this week, or getting ready to take their praxis? Not ready yet. Well, I know that some of you have, and I've got my fingers crossed. I'm sure that everyone will be fine, to be honest with you. I think that you've done great this year. In July. That's a good time to take it, actually. So, this is the last meeting of the school year. And so what I normally do is make it short and sweet for you, because I'm assuming most of you either are finished already or probably finishing up their last week this week. And so I usually do something a little different. So this is my kind of my reflection for you this week. So let's see if I can make this work. So as you know, EC6, last session, being effective means positive, being a classroom manager, designing your lessons for mastery based on standards and not based on a test, figuring out how to be a leader in your classroom, and being awesome. I looked around my school at the first year teachers. I see some stress, but now it just seems a little bit like weariness. Everybody was ready to be done. I'm done. So for Constance, whose last day is tomorrow, I'm sure that everybody, including the kids, are ready to be done. Almost all of my colleagues have contracts to teach next year. Most know what grades they're going to be teaching, although some are moving to different grades. One is or has retired, and there may be a few other openings. I stopped by my new school. I will teach preschool children with and without disabilities in a new school district, so I have some excitement and some trepidation. It's literally a mile and a half from my house, so there will be no more 30-minute commute, I hope, other than around the collective nasty traffic sometimes in the morning. But at this time of year, there's generally just a good old sigh of relief, and then we start looking to the future. And last time we really talked about making sure we sit down and write down our thoughts so that we have them for next year, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then I thought about you guys, especially all of you have been on before. So you have come a very long way since last September. So congratulations, you have another year, either your first year or another year under your belt. And I can tell by the comments that you've made over the last 3 months that you have made very good strides. So when I look at them, I see both reflection of practice and contribution to our profession. It is a profession. No matter what anybody, I was in business for 25 years. So I had a very different perspective about the practice of teaching, the profession of teaching, than I have now. And so thank you. You have both reflection and you have to have both reflection and contribution to be successful. So you know my motto. My motto is always, and always will be, first be competent. You cannot be great in this profession with this craft if you are not competent first. So you have to know what to do. You have to know what the subject, the content you're teaching. You have to be competent. And you have to be competent in classroom management. Be caring, and most of all, to be courageous. So when you're competent, remember that when you opened the door for the first time and thought, do I know what I'm doing? I can remember that. I remember like the very first year that I taught, I think I was in the classroom a month early. And I probably will be for this new school also. What am I going to do? How am I going to do it? Am I confident doing that? Caring is the ability to know that you do not teach. We do not teach. We facilitate learning. And that, to be honest with you, relationships are everything. to be able to port your knowledge, your content, the facilitation that you have to do because you're competent. You also have to have that bit of caring. I can never teach that. No one can teach that to you. That's kind of something that you either look at and you see from someone else, or you bring it with you, or that you adopt it. And the last is to be courageous. And it's the knowledge that taking educated risks are good. Not just risk for the sake of risk, but that educated risks are good. And sometimes we fail, and sometimes we learn from that. But when it works, boy, look out, because the light bulbs go off in your students. As you wrap up your year, I thought I would give you back some of your own words. So we will, in fact, I know we won't go till for an hour, but I thought I try to do this every year. I took some of the stuff from last year. I took some of the things you said from this year, and I wrap it into my reflection about you, and actually kind of giving it back. So these are the words that I have heard about competence. And it says, this person says, I've been focusing on diversity all week. We are doing a project on it. My students felt a little awkward at first and didn't see its relevance, but after a few stories and activities, they are really getting into the discussion and project details. They felt awkward approaching it, and also because of the relevance. But once I showed them how important it is to them and why it is important they really opened up to listening and learning more. So really that was about project-based learning. And there was a big thing in Education Week this past week about facilitating project-based learning. And there were pros and cons. And the pros is those who really figured out how to work in groups and wanted to do a good job. They did a great job. Those who got paired up with someone who just wanted to maybe look at the book or look at their iPhone or their phones, they had some difficulties with it. So just knowing that when it works, it is wonderful. Competence. Things. I show pictures are related to a story. They get hooked. I try to integrate visual media and audio into the lessons I'm teaching. Again, they get hooked. Competence. If the lesson is planned well. So knowing full well that planning is absolutely like the first key to being competent, to making sure that the lesson works and that the learning is facilitated well, is to plan it well. Someone else said, I'm happy to be doing well now. I've established patterns and routines that help me get through the classes more easily now. It's probably one of you guys that said that, I'm thinking. Someone said, I saw improvement in my students' IEP goals, and I am proud of them. And that's a hats off to someone who worked and planned to make sure that all students make progress. Someone else said, this is my first year and I'm proud of making it. But I'm also grateful for the wonderful information and strategies that I will be able to take with me to make next school year great. And someone else said, my big aha moment was that culturally responsive teaching strategies actually work and make instruction more effective. And I'm like, wow, that's a very big aha, a very big aha. Competent. So this person said, a moment that sticks out to me happened with one of my students who has trouble, and it might be one of you guys, regulating his behavior. He will be doing great at some points and then terrible at others. We began talking about his behavior in terms of exit ticket scores for third grade. We began labeling his behavior as 0% behavior or 100% behavior because that is what he would receive. When we talked about his behavior in terms of something more tangible, like grades, he was much more successful in being able to regulate his behavior and get back on track. And I put this in competence, in the area of competence, more so than the area of caring or the area of being courageous, although I think it's a great way to be aha. But it means that competence is more than just content. You know, effective teachers, they know their stuff. But more than that, they know their stuff. They also know how to manage their classroom and manage behaviors. So this really is a very good competent moment. Competent. See, you guys didn't know I actually went back and read all this stuff. Well, I had one last week. The teacher next door asked me to tutor one of her slow learners. I told her I would be using Letterland. Then that student was doing well with letter sounds in Letterland. She sent me another student who she thought couldn't read, which to me, I'm sorry, is an amazing statement. You know, a teacher thought somebody couldn't read. I started him with Letterland, and it turns out that he knew all of his letter sounds. He knew them so well. When I showed him blending sounds, he could read a little bit. They were so amazed. He had a set in her class he had set in her class this whole year, and they didn't know that he could read this way. Whoever wrote that, thank you for being competent. Thank you very much for being competent. Competent. Be more clear about what I expect from students. Rubrics are a must, especially rubrics which are clear and to the point. Someone else said that I had been working a lot more than I needed to. With just setting standard classroom procedures from the start made my year a lot easier. Another one said, I haven't done many activities with objects, but I read about this one the other day. I think the terms they kept using was realia, which consists of activities with everyday objects. And I plan to use these activities like this next year. And the infamous Marzano. I like Marzano flashcards for vocabulary. I ran into someone the other day who's headed for Orlando, to a conference in Orlando, I think this month, where Marzano is presenting, or they're presenting Marzano. I think Marzano's coming, so I wish I was in the luggage. So those were the caring pieces, and there were a lot, or the competent pieces, and there were a lot more. Just know, maybe even inadvertently, that when you type something in and made it a sentence, that when I read it, I could see not only just a train of thought, but the train of all of those little tiny incremental steps that make us better at our profession, make us more competent, and that you realized that you are more competent every day. Just the same as I realize that when something goes well, that I've learned something. So the next, it was always competent, caring, and courageous. So then I went through and sifted through the chats about caring. So I also kind of put in the pride pieces and some of your aha moments. So this is what students on mNET have said. And it says, I'm proud of the relationships I built with the students in my first year. That is profound. That is absolutely profound. I'm proud that a couple of my students pre-K have learned that fighting is not the answer. And that is also profound, because it is something they have learned, not that something you've helped them to learn. I am proud that the many small connections I made with my students, I'm proud of the many small connections I made with my students, the one-on-one relationships I developed through tutoring, and yes, glad I made it this far. God give me strength not to give up these last 3 weeks. So I'm assuming no one has given up. I'm proud of all the growth I have seen in my students. And so again, that recognition that not only is it competence, but it's caring. I am proud that I survived my first year, but also seeing my students think differently about history and their life after the school year. So it's bigger than your classroom. It's about the students. My big aha is my relationships with my parents. I would not be able to do what I have done without my parents. I am proud of seeing my kids grow. I would like to still know more about being a successful teacher. Anything will help. But they're right. Parents are key. Parents are key. I tell my new student teachers that, and my students at university, that parents really are 99.9% right. For the most part, they're the ones that see the kid every day. They're the ones that know everyone's history. They're the ones that children come home to. My big aha is realizing the potential my students have if provided the guidance and nurturing they need. And people think that teachers just go out and read a script. That's a very big aha. My big aha was how much I truly care for my students. I knew I would care, but not at this level. I worry about them. I think about them. I go out of my way to help them. I want nothing but the best for them. If that's not the definition of caring, I don't know what is. And sometimes helping them doesn't mean giving them everything, just like anything else. It's showing them the way. And still more. You guys wrote a lot. My big aha is that my students have so much potential to learn, and they just needed the right resource to get there. Woo! Competence and caring. Competence and that relationship. Competence and understanding that it's about every kid every student as an individual, which is why we talk so much about universal design for learning now. It's why we talk so much about differentiated learning. It's why I talk so much about the fact that my grandfather, who was a one-room schoolhouse teacher, God rest his soul, had here's what I have to teach, and here's the page we have to be on, and by gosh, you better learn it or else you're going home. That isn't where we're at anymore. It really isn't. The teachers who care have the hardest task in comparison to those who are there for a paycheck. That's a revelation. That's an observation. I want my students to know that they are extremely smart. And my big aha was when one of my students came to that realization themselves. Pretty cool. I am most proud of seeing my ID Mild students eagerly coming to school to learn. And that is a pretty cool thing. I learn, and you know what? If they eagerly want to come to school to learn, I bet you the parents behind them are also right there with them. I learned the importance of advocating for my students, regardless of how many conversations, emails, letters, and office visits I had to make to do it. Courageous, taking that educated risk, looking for that one way in to a kid's brain to make it grow, trying a new technique to see if it works, but being courageous. And this person said, I took a risk and proud of a graduation ceremony that we are doing in-house for our 12th graders. We are making it just like the ones that typical students will be having. I can't wait. And that that one's in there from last year, because in this case, her students who were students on IEPs were not going to graduation. So She said that this year her courageous moment was going to make sure they attend regular graduation. So my aha moment was last week when I introduced my fifth graders to architecture, and many want to choose it as a career at fifth grade. Good idea. I will do my best, which is putting my best foot forward and doing my best. I got many good professional connections for a lifetime, hopefully. And that's being courageous that you are not alone, that you have to do this in collaboration with others. Because sometimes you have to be able to bounce an idea off of someone, or, I'm really really good about stealing shamelessly from someone if it's a great idea. If I see it and it looks great and I think I can try it, I'm going to use it. So it's a good thing. I have nonverbal children, and they play alone in STEM all the time. You have given me some nice tips, and I'm not worried about how my classroom will look. I'm going to be an effective teacher. I don't feel I'm not lacking anything, and I know how to, I think that's hone my skills and be reflective. And that is right. That's courageously taking everything in, being reflective, and putting your best foot forward, and knowing when it's not your best foot to go out and look for ways to be better. To remember that sometimes when you teach an engaging concept that isn't tested, it might turn on those fighting you with the tested stuff. That's an interesting revelation. Not sweating the small stuff. If my student is on the floor and thoroughly engaged, go with that. And whoever wrote that, you're right. You are right. Sometimes I go into a colleague's classroom, or they come into mine, and the student may be under a desk, but they're drawing, or they're creating a book, or they're learning how to write their name with a whiteboard. But they feel very comfortable in a very nice little safe space. You know what? It's not sweating the small stuff. It's not worrying about who's coming in. It's worrying about if the student is engaged. So whoever wrote that, good thought. Courageous and reflective. I have nonverbal children, and they play here we go. Play alone in STEM all the time. You have given me some nice tips, and I'm not worried about my classroom. That's the same one. So I thought it was courageous too. I am going to be an effective teacher. The other one says, this is my first semester teaching, and classroom management was definitely the focus this semester. It was 7th grade English, but it helped me get on track for what I need to do next semester. So I'm very proud of you. I am very, very proud of you. I know we all do, that we have times of discouragement. I know that you are tired. We all are tired. But I know from your own words that you are becoming more competent, much more caring, and much more courageous. Just think about what you have done, not what you went through, but think about what you've done this year. And you can't do it by yourself. You need each other, and you need resources, and you need someone to pick you up when you fall over, just like you pick up your students when they fall over. You are becoming leaders. So any additional thoughts? I have a couple other things, but any additional thoughts from all of you out there? While you're typing, I'm going to take a drink of water. One last article to share. The Fast and the Furious homestretch, because this is what we have been in. And this gentleman says, savor the moments. Sit down and savor the moments. What's exciting to see at this time of the year is the growth of students and the evolution of the classroom environment, which is due to the skill and care that, teachers have put into creating and cultivating learning spaces where students can try out ideas, take risks, explore their passions, and start putting together culminating projects to capture the various skills they have acquired in class. And I mean, this is so true. I know many of the high school kids, and even I think our fifth graders, our eighth graders, they all had to do a little bit of a capstone project, and they were amazing. You know, they were amazing. I have a nephew who just graduated from high school two weeks ago. And one of the projects he had to do was called a journey project. He had to put together what he learned the 4 years he was in high school. And it took him like forever. But what he put together made him reflect upon what he had really learned. And he's going to be coming to University of Cincinnati, not Ohio State, but UC for their architecture program next year. So the home stretch. Celebrate student growth. Take time to look back at your classes, appreciate how far you've come with them and with your students, pat yourself on the back, take a deep breath, reboot for the final either few weeks or the final day, and here to help. Find the small everyday moments to appreciate. Appreciate a colleague who's helped you. Think of a time when you were there for a colleague. And I wanted to say, I know Emily Shooter is on here also. And she's been the wing person for this entire year, actually for the last 2 years. And I want to make sure that I say thank you so very, very much, Emily, because you have been a great wing person and a godsend to do all of these things for me. And I think this is the last thing. So I said we're only going to go a half an hour today because it is time. Please be awesome. Please be a teacherpreneur and think about it. And so this is from Richard, which I'm surprised he's not on tonight. So Richard said, I want to say either the last time we were on or 2 times we were on together. He said, thank you for pushing us to be more than teachers. We are really lifelong learners, always looking for a nugget to grasp in everything we see, hear, and experience in life. So, Richard, you really should be a philosopher, because I thought that summed it up absolutely in a wonderful manner. So have a great summer. Unless you have something else for me, we'll see you in the fall. And thank you for making me a better teacher.